Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. So today we are going to be talking about the first movie of the year that has came out in theaters. We have the movie The Night Swim. Let's talk about it.
Modern Movie Review.
Alrighty, so this is my first movie review of the year. I kind of want to do things a little bit differently this year. Last year, I kind of got to a point where, like, some of my movie reviews were, like, 6 minutes long, and then some of them were, like, 20 minutes long because I didn't have, like, a confined, like, structure for how I'm going to be doing these videos. But now I kind of have, like, 6 different criterias that I want to talk about when it comes to the movies. So I will be first talking about the acting, then I'll be talking about the directing, then I'll be talking about the writing. And when I talk about the writing, there will be 2 kind of subsections. There will be one for the dialogue writing and then one for the overall plot. Because in my opinion, sometimes a movie can have excellent dialogue, but then the plot itself is super generic, or vice versa. There will be a really cool plot with a very interesting storyline, and then the dialogue just doesn't suit it as well. So I'm kind of going to have those as 2 separate categories. And then we're also going to be talking about the sound design, if there's anything cool with that, if there's a score or anything like that. And then the last one is just going to be my personal enjoyment. But that one will also be like, did this movie serve its purpose? So for this movie specifically, since it is a horror movie, was it scary? Is kind of going to be the premise for that. So let's dive right into this without any further ado. There we go. That's the word I meant to say. So starting off, I want to talk about the acting. Overall, I think that the acting in this movie was relatively well done. I think that the family dynamic is great. The actress who played the mother was really, really good, and I absolutely loved her performance in this. And I think, like I said, the family dynamic in this works really well. The young actress who plays the daughter and the young actress who plays the son, they work relatively well together. Their sibling dynamic feels very realistic, and the insults and stuff that they constantly are giving each other is great. And then the moments towards the end when they're going through some more traumatic stuff and they're really having each other's back is very well done in this movie, and I really enjoy that. And then Wyatt Russell's portrayal as the father in this, who has this very conflicted story, I think he plays it relatively well. I think that overall acting is one of the strong suits for this movie. But that being said, I will say some of the side actors and actresses aren't that great. Like, there's a couple of moments here and there where we'll see the main family interact with other people, and it's supposed to be like this big thing that's going on, and the other actors don't really bring as much energy to the table as the main actors. Like, there's a sequence where the mom goes and visits somebody who used to live in the house, and that's supposed to be a really scary sequence, and the woman who she's having a conversation with is somebody who, like, basically, like, made a pact with the devil, essentially, and she's kind of, like, having, like, a psychic, like, episode, or, like, a manic episode kind of thing, and she's freaking out. But I think that entire action moment there is, like, very stale, and they kind of, like, just, you know, hope that the effects and everything will make that scene work, and for me, it just didn't. Kind of took me out of the film a little bit. And then there's also just some moments where it's, like, there's really bad forced tension. Like, they have some sequences with the next door neighbors and stuff like that, where this neighbor who we just met is like, oh my god, never talk to my family again, and stuff like that. And it's like, it's played like it's supposed to be this really big moment, but because we don't really know that family very well, and that actor and actress, like, duo for those 2 parents or whatever was only in the movie for about like a minute and a half, so it felt very lackluster in that sense. So I will say all these supporting actors and actresses who aren't a part of the main family do kind of take the acting notches down a little bit for this part. Next, I want to talk about the direction. I will say this: any movie where you are having people actually in water and in pools and stuff like that to film sequences, it's got to be a relatively hard movie to direct, and I think that for the most part they do a really good job. There are some shots here that I think are really cool. A lot of the times where we get, like, shots that's like eye level with the water is pretty interesting, and then a lot of the underwater sequences, they do a good job, even though it is probably just filmed obviously in pools, making it feel like it is insanely deep and they are underwater and they're not having the best odds of being able to swim back up to the top. I think that they do a good job with that. A lot of the sequences shot inside the house in the final act were really well done as well. I think that the lighting and everything with that is fantastic. So overall, all the behind the scenes stuff I think were relatively good, and I do think that that stuff works well for this movie specifically. So going from that, I want to talk about the sound, because overall the sound isn't that big of a key feature in this. There are a couple of moments where the score really does do a good job of help building the tension and making things a little bit scarier, but overall there's not any moments where it's like, oh my god, that sound design was incredible. I do think that obviously sometimes the underwater creatures and stuff like that will kind of make some noises that are very interesting, but like I said, it's not something that'll make or break this film. I think it's very base level. It's very in the middle. It's not great, it's not good, it's not bad. It's just, it's there, it's okay, and yeah. Alrighty, sorry for the awkward cut. My dogs are going crazy in the other room, so I had to go take care of them. But now the next thing I want to talk about is the writing. There's a reason why I had to say, like, let's break this writing up into two separate parts, one for the plot, one for the dialogue, because overall the plot of this movie is incredibly generic. I feel like I haven't seen a lot of horror movies, but I feel like it's probably a trope that there's this family, we meet them, they have a, relatively cute family dynamic, and everything seems to be all, butterflies and rainbows, and everything's going great with that family, and then something will happen, one of the members of the family will get, like, possessed, essentially, and then it creates this whole dilemma of the family having to decide if they are going to have to try to kill, whoever is possessed, or trying to figure out what they can do to help save the person who's possessed, and basically just a giant, like, family dynamic of this family that was once a loving family having to go through this trauma together. Overall, I think that the plot of the film works, but because it is such an overused thing, and it doesn't necessarily do it better than any other specific films, it does kind of feel very base level for me. I think that it's a very okay horror movie. If you like horror movies for the sake of being horror movies, this is just another horror movie, is basically one way I could put this. And then for the dialogue aspect of things, I think that the way that they write the dialogue works relatively well. There are a couple of characters that are way over the top in this. Like I mentioned earlier, the neighbors, they are only in the movie for a really short period of time, and the entire time they are in the, movie, they're just kind of like the basic, like, stereotype, this is what a neighbor in a movie is, and it's really weird. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think that obviously their inclusion in this film is kind of important because it creates, some of the tension and stuff that happens, and some of the scary moments that happen in the film are because other people get invited to this house for a pool party and stuff like that. But overall, their entire, like, character in this movie is just weird. There is a character, the real estate agent. She is absolutely hilarious. Every single time she's on screen is really funny to me. So I'm glad she was a part of this. I think that she was great. Like I said, this is another one of those, like, character archetype things where it's like she's played way over the top for laughs, but it works, and I like that. So overall, that's all I have to say about the writing. I think that it's relatively generic. A lot of the side characters feel like they don't need to be a part of the movie. When they're describing the lore and all of the backstory behind the, demonic thing that's happening in the pool, it's relatively well written. There's an interesting monologue sequence that happens in the scene that I'm talking about with the mom going to visit the person who they're, used to live in the house. So, like, all that stuff works relatively well. I just don't think it's anything special. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was my personal enjoyment of this film. I did go see it with my girlfriend, and she's a lot bigger of a horror fan than I am, and for the most part, she was enjoying it, so I enjoyed it. But does it serve its purpose? Is it a scary movie? Not really. I think that the creature that they show in the movie is relatively scary, but they only show the creature about 3 or 4 times, and then almost every single time they do, it's not a really great build-up for it. I feel like in the beginning of the movie, in the first act, there are a lot of sequences where the mother character is going out for a swim or whatever, and she's having a fun time, like, just swimming on her own, and then something will happen, and she'll look up, and she'll see her husband. He's just standing there. But then whenever she gets out of the pool, he's not there anymore. She goes upstairs. He's asleep in the room. He's apparently been asleep the entire time. And she's freaking out because she's like, I know I just saw him outside, but he's not. And then there's a lot of stuff like that where it's like people will see things that aren't really there. And I feel like all of those in the first act of the movie work really well. It's very scary without having to have some creature that just looks scary for the sake of looking scary. And so with that being said, I definitely think that the first act of this movie did a decent job of building the horror tension, and then the second act of the movie felt a little more rushed, and if they took their time with it, it could have been a lot cooler. But yeah, there are a couple sequences, though, where they're underwater and they're, like, fighting monsters and stuff like that, where it does kind of, like, take your breath away a little bit, because you're stressed out if they're going to be able to get out of the water in time, but for the most part, it's not that scary. But yeah, overall, I thought this movie wasn't bad. I think that for the first movie of the year, it definitely could have been significantly worse. But since I am not a huge fan of horror movies, I am giving this movie a rating of a 61 out of 100. I think it's very generic. I think that the characters, although I do like the family dynamic, aren't that endearing. So whenever there's stuff that happens towards the end of the film or whatever, that seems like it's supposed to be emotional, it doesn't really have that much emotional weight to it. And yeah, overall, thought this movie was okay, but I would not necessarily recommend it unless you are, like, a horror fan and you need to see every horror movie ever. But yeah, that being said, that was it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and checking it out. I love and appreciate you guys so much watching. If you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow. Bow, bow.
He wanted me to drop a first. I did this. We planned it. love with the girls with the kisses. Don't give a damn, I'll rid this. I like this when I run the distance. I run a 5K, you go ballistics. I want to live within the business. Buy more than what's on the clearances. You're getting big because I know you're a physicist. I want to deny this shit, I'm unlimited.